Hey, I'm Mark Loftus with Post Magazine, and we're at the NAB show in New York City, and I'm joined with Katie Cole from Perforce, who's going to talk to us a little bit about the company and their version control software. Katie, welcome.
Thanks, Mark. How you doing?
Doing well. Great to, we've chatted in the past, but it's good to have you on camera for Post TV.
Yes,
welcome.
It's nice to meet you in person.
You too. So for our audience who may not be familiar with Perforce, I know a little bit about it, but maybe you can give us a background on the company and how you've kind of made your way into media and entertainment from where you've been before that.
Yeah, so at Perforce, we like to say that we're solving the toughest problems, toughest challenges in DevOps. So we have lots of different pieces of software that help others that are creating software. But really the one piece that people know Perforce for the most is our version control software, Helix Core.
Mm-hmm.
And how did we get into media and entertainment is kind of an interesting story, because version control started decades ago, and about 10 years ago or so, maybe even a dozen years ago, we really became ingrained in the game industry. So we were really the version control solution that worked for the scale that was required for these game developers.
Okay.
And now with the introduction of virtual production and the use of these real-time engines, also known as game engines, such as Unreal Engine, Unity, we have been pulled into media and entertainment as well.
Understood. Okay, and version control goes beyond just software. It could be for product development. It could be for many different applications.
Yeah.
This is just one business under a...
Any sort of virtual or digital asset that you need to be creating. Maybe it'll be a piece of your final product out there. It can version any of those pieces. Really, in media and entertainment, when we talk to people, we talk a lot about your 3D pipeline. So if you have anything in your 3D pipeline, we can store those assets, we can version those assets, make it really easy for you to share those assets with remote collaborators or maybe different vendors that you're working with. Make sure that you're not duplicating work or effort, or work's being lost or corrupted. That's how we kind of play in the space.
Okay. For obviously media and entertainment is a newer business. What does version control mean in the media and entertainment space? You talk a little bit about virtual production. It's a new way of doing things where some of those assets are developed firsthand so that they can be used in volumes.
Yeah.
And there's a development process there, and then there's still a post-production process where things are kind of moving along to their final stages. What does it mean for the way you guys see it for version control in our space?
Yeah, I mean, well, it's really about any time that you're iterating. Right? So it's really extremely useful in pre-production.
Okay.
Right? So this is where you're doing tech viz, pre-viz, all of those different things where you're trying to get the shot as close to perfect as possible. You know that once you go into production and you're on the set, there are always going to be changes that need to be made. But still, this is the time where it costs the least amount of money to make changes, right? And so that's really where we see version control fitting in the most, is in those early stages where you're trying to figure out, what do I want to do and how do I want to build it? And you're working with a lot of different people trying to refine what those assets are going to look like at the end of the day. And so really how we see it is we're kind of a hub between your producers, your directors, your virtual art department, all of these different people that are playing a role in those early stages of virtual production. Creating those assets, iterating on those assets, that's really where we're going to fit in the best. Then you can talk about production, right? So we're on the stage. As I mentioned before, there's inevitably going to be some change. You try to figure out everything, you have it all set beforehand, but something's going to get edited. You're going to have to say, oh, you know what? We didn't realize that this costume doesn't exactly work with that background. Maybe we have to move that mountain, or we have to tweak a color or something along those lines. Version control can be there on set with you, so that you've saved that change, and now you can pass that change on to your post-production team, and they know exactly what files were used in the creation of the film that was captured on set. Now it's going to make the post-production a lot easier as well.
Now, your products are software products. You have software and you have a digital asset management solution too, and that's what I was thinking above, just with all of these assets. Can you talk a little bit about your products?
Sure. So we've been talking about version control, which is our Helix Core product. And that's where all of the assets are stored and they're versioned. So you have the latest version of the file, and then you have every other version that was ever created. So again, if you're iterating and you go like, oh, well, I liked that version 3 versions ago, you click a button and now you're back to that version, right? So that's Helix Core. And then you have Helix Digital Asset Management, or Helix DAM for short. And this is a new layer that we've added on top of Helix Core. And really what it's going to do is create a visual catalog of all of these assets that live inside of Helix Core. It's going to take every single art asset. It could be a video, it could be a 3D file, it could be a 3D object, a 2D asset, it could be audio. It's going to create thumbnails of those assets automatically. So now I can pull up a browser as an art person, right? I can pull up a browser and I can see all the assets that live inside of my Helix Core version control, right? And not only can I see them, but they are also tagged with AI. So if I want to and I go, oh, you know what, there was a car that we used in this production a while ago, and I want to use that as a base for this other car that I'm going to use in some other version, right? I can type in car, and now I can see every car that we have in our digital asset manager. I see a little thumbnail of it, and I go, oh yes, let me click on that. Oh, now it's a 3D object. I'll preview that 3D object. I'm not going to have the software that can. A lot of times, have you ever tried to open a file and it goes like, oh, what are you going to open this in? And you're like,
what
I don't
application?
have this thing to open this in, right? You don't have to do that. It's all in the browser. We have a tool, so you click on the asset. And now I'm looking at the 3D object, and I'm looking at it in 3-dimensional space, so I can actually rotate that asset around and go, yes, this is exactly the car that I want to be using for my extended reality scene on whatever I'm doing, right? And I'm going to pull it in, I'm going to make iterations of it. Maybe I change the color, maybe I add a luggage rack to the top.
Maybe there's a couple of versions
of it.
Maybe
there's a couple of versions, right? Now I can save that back in. It's a simple drag and drop into the browser. Now that asset can either be stored as a new iteration of that file, the latest version of it, and I want everybody else to be using this version of that car, or I can also save it in there as a totally separate version. So now I have a car with luggage rack, right? So these are all things that are now just automatically in the system for anybody else on the team to use that has permission to those files. So that's another piece of it.
This would integrate with a studio's existing storage backbone.
You know, really, if you're going to be using Helix Core will really become the storage, right? It's the source of truth. This is where all of the assets, we want to make sure that each member of your team is using the most up-to-date version of this file. That's why you rely on Helix Core, right? And again, this is going to be mostly for your 3D pipeline. It's not going to be for like raw footage or something like that. It's not going to replace those types of things. It's like, hey, I have these assets that are going to be used inside of something else. That's really what we're going to be storing and versioning. Okay.
What are you showing here at NAB in New York? You guys have a booth.
Yeah, so we are showing our Helix Core, we're showing our Helix DAM, but also we're promoting our Perforce University.
You were telling me a little bit about that, an educational effort that you have for people that want to learn more about virtual production pipeline.
Exactly, right? Virtual production is still a new thing in the industry, and people have a lot of questions about it. And they also have questions about how does version control even fit into this.
Right.
So we have 6 hours of free content that's available for anybody to just go onto the website and check out. It's on Perforce U, College of Virtual Production. We actually partnered with one of our customers who works in the virtual production space. They've been VADs, they've been virtual production supervisors for all sorts of productions. They partnered with us to create this content and try to help educate the industry.
Cool. So if somebody in the audience wants to learn more, what would be your web address or social media that they could find you?
Yeah, so perforce.com is the easiest way. But you can also search for variations of that. Perforce VFX or Perforce U is also the educational piece of that. And then we also have an NAB specific event page. So Perforce NAB, you could also put onto our website and you'd probably be able to find us.
All right, so there's a lot to check out there. Definitely check out Perforce. Katie, I want to thank you for stopping by Post TV,
giving
us the update. Let's keep in touch.
All right, thank you so much.
Take care.